I'm just,
upsets me that you
I'm
don't
on
watch
Moana right now. You think of them just again leaving
Like this
It's like
so I
I'm
was
naturally doing this.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Three Fates podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Deanne.
I'm Pam.
And I'm Meredith. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. Are we going up into the sky today, ladies?
I think so.
Starseeds, starseeds.
Calling all Starseeds.
What is a starseed for those
Step
that
forward, all starseeds.
have no idea?
Meredith, I have no idea.
If I say what's a starseed for those who have no idea?
Yeah, so I would say I said.
I had a question.
Listen to me, people. What is a starseed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are, and this concept has been around for a very long time. And it actually, from what I know, it had a lot more of, it was like a popular spiritual thing, probably like in like the 70s. And then, and 80s even. And then it sort of petered out like most hyped things do. And it still stays around. And then you kind of see people like, on regular media outlets talking about how, oh, this person thinks they're an alien and they're in a human body, but they're an alien. And that's, what they're saying is I'm a starseed. And so there's this confusion about, well, why don't you look like an alien then if you're from outer space? So that's kind of like a little bit of how the concept came to terms. And I mean, starseeds have been literally seeding our earth since the start of humanity and the start of time. And so it literally is that, a soul's origin that comes from a planet, a galaxy, a constellation. And that soul's origin from there decides to have a lifetime and seed and incarnate onto earth. Therefore, it's called a star seed that exists on earth. So I always say there's like different types of souls and origins to a soul. There can be souls that are just of the earth plane. There's souls that are from the angelic realms, which are highly tied to the galactics. And then there's the starseeds, which is your galaxies, constellations, planets, interdimensionals that seed the earth. And then I also say there's the animal kingdom. I believe that there's souls that have had lives and, things from the animal kingdom, and they come into human bodies. And a lot of even animals and all species have also come from our galactic families. So that's, in a nutshell, the best, I would say, way to look at a starseed. Pam, do you want to add anything to that?
Nope, that was great. Yeah.
So then what happens is, obviously, I work in a lot of birth archetypes, so spirit babies. So when I'm reading a spirit baby, they'll show me sometimes their quote unquote alien, but they'll show me their origin self. And then they'll show me that as they get closer to the Earth's dimension, they begin to take on human traits. So they start to have a personality that's like what we would experience here in the human dynamic and in human genetics. And so it is a soul that, is quite high vibrating usually when they come from these galactic places. And when they choose to incarnate and come onto Earth, they're in a way looking for bodies where they can transfer that energy and that vibration into the proper housing system here. So even though they come from where we should look like interdimensional beings, they're choosing to have an Earth experience, which also means taking an Earth body. So we're not going to walk around looking like aliens, even though we might have some maybe personality quirks or traits or purposes or intuitions that really represent where we've come from. So sometimes I might say, like, that person kind of looks like a little bit of an otherworldly being, and you can sort of see it through them, and it does influence their human body just like any other DNA vibration can. It's kind of very similar. Like you get like a organ transplant, and then you begin to sort of take on the energy of that person or the donor, and the recipient begins to take on aspects. It's kind of the same thing when there's a starseed coming in. It's going to manifest itself in the recipient, which is this body. So we will see characteristics of otherworldly behavior and things like that. So that's a starseed. We're working directly with our galactic friends and neighbors. It's not, a lot of times people go, yeah, that doesn't exist, or that's scary. And that's what we're here to kind of bridge, I think, that knowledge and some of that safety, and potentially someone hears this, they're like, yes, I know, but what do I do with that information as well? So I'm really passionate about this topic. Obviously, you can tell. I'm like, oh, let's talk forever. And I don't necessarily know if it's like my sole purpose, but I love bringing awareness back into the starseeds and holding a lot of space for healing for starseeds as well. So I guess let's start, like, how do you know that you are one? Like, Pam, like, we all kind of know that we're starseeds. I think, Mare, you identify as some element of starseed, or are you coming around?
Fair. Yeah,
that's fair
I'm
to
like
say.
on the fence.
Yeah,
but also like know things that don't make sense.
Yep.
You're like, fine, there's a little...
Fine.
It's like a
to say there's
energy.
been resistance would be accurate.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that though, because that's where we discern.
Yeah.
Totally. And so, Pam, for you, how did you know it was like 100% yes? Or I guess, was it 100% right away? I don't know.
No,
the
not
concept
no.
of
It wasn't,
starseed.
because when I first heard about starseeds, probably about 10 or so years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are they talking about? And I'd hear people like speak light language and all these different things. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. They're talking some weird alien thing, and I don't know what's going on. And I felt really out of place in those conversations. I felt super like very earthy and human. I'm like, what are they talking about? That, like, oh my God, that's wild. They think they're from these different places. And I had back then, like 10 years ago, no, like where I was then, I couldn't see that on myself. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward, maybe till about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, mm-hmm. perhaps. And it was in a reading. Our friend, not our friend, but you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that mutual reader that we
yeah,
know. Yeah.
Yeah. She was a galactic reader, and I did a reading with her, and maybe it was where I was, the work had I done for myself that I was able to hear it, and I had maybe it was just my time.
Yeah.
And she did a galactic reading for me, and she was reading into my soul origins, and something about how she delivered it, or the timing of it, it just moved through my body in a way that I was like, whoa, like it was a washing wave over my system of truth. And all of a sudden, something that I was kind of like, I don't get this. It was very foreign. It's not for me. Mm-hmm. But I'll be around it. I'm curious, but I'm kind of afraid of it. It was fear that was kind of locking me down from really receiving it for myself. It was kind of scary. And then in this moment, in this reading, it was an activation in my body of deep cellular truth. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. And it was just so true. And then I could see and feel that galactic parallel of myself, and so deeply ever since, and even more so ever since. So it was just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember being like, it's so weird because now I feel so not grounded in earth. But before my awakening with it, I was like, oh, I'm so of the earth. I'm like, I can never be galactic. Like I was like, no, I'm so comfortable here. I love earth. Like, and I do. That's because I've fucking been here so many times that I understand the games of earth. So they always say that you will feel like a starseed. You'll know you're a starseed if you feel a deep sense of homesickness. Like you just can't find home anywhere that you go in
I
earth.
had that for sure. Yeah.
And there's a longing, there's something greater. And I was like, no, this is my home. Like this is, but I think it's just because I had so much, experience here. I wasn't like a newer starseed coming to Earth, because there can be old souls, there can be that are from a galactic origin, and they're just going to be quite comfortable with Earth because they have a lot of experience. And then there would be some that are like, even though they might be really old souls in the galactic version of things, they're quite new to Earth. So they're still having to learn the Earth experiment. But yeah, so I was like, no, can't be me. And then before our reader, that Pam and I both shared that experience, I was told actually that I was angelic. So someone said I was from an angelic realm. And I was like, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm totally not galactic. Like I was like almost not denial, not because I didn't believe or trust or didn't want to. I was just like, no, I don't feel that in any way.
Is an angelic realm
weird?
different than a galactic realm?
Yeah.
Great. Say more.
Yeah. I would say when the universe started to have polarization or fragmentation, it actually fragmented first into an angelic realm. That's my belief system, and my learning and studying of that is that it went more into a dimensional of angelics, and then from angelics, there was the setup of kind of like our galactic history, if you will, or planets, and then from that setup, then we came to Earth. Earth is just like another planet that the galactic. It's, if you think of it this way, we think Earth is like the center and everything revolves around like Earth, right? But it's like if you think of everything actually revolves around the galactic and the universal totality of above in a way, and Earth is another planet of habitat compared to every other planet, right? So when they say as above, so below, it's mostly because as above, everything was mapped out. Earth just typically tends to mirror most of what has happened in the galactic.
And does Earth factor in terms of the solar system? So the planets and the sun that we rotate around, is that kind of a collective unit?
Yeah, I'd say. And then I'd also say that there's other galaxies too that we don't know of, and like portals and black holes that might take us somewhere else. So it's a small playfield, very small playfield. Would you say, Pam? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's nodding. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'm angelic. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then I started channeling Merlin. No, Merlin just showed up. I didn't ask for that. No, maybe I did. I think I asked for like some sort of guidance. I don't know. And then Merlin showed up. And before that, I was starting to become aware of, like, I had a friend that was going into some galactic stuff. And then all of a sudden I was like, something deeply in me was yearning for information. It was like, what? Even though I had heard of it before, I had no inkling. This gave me huge inkling. And then Merlin showed up, and Merlin does a lot in the galactic field. He's like massive magician up there. So we won't go into that. That's a whole other story. But he showed me a lot of ascension energy up to galactic energy. So yeah, anyways.
And it's interesting too, because you were so like invested in Earth life before you realized, no, maybe I do have these galactic origins. And with that realization, you've actually been tuning into the layers of healing of actually, whoa, I'm not grounded in Earth, and I'm having a root chakra instability. And it was all like an illusion of being stable here, where actually in the truth of your Starseed healing, you're like, whoa, I actually don't feel very human at all.
No, I struggled to actually be here. It just, the way it was coming in, I wasn't seeing it, but experiencing it in other ways. Totally. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It is interesting. So, so that, and then, so once you kind of like, it could happen like organically in a way like that, like the information sort of just lands and suddenly it really lands, and then there's an opening. And for some, it might not be this lifetime to ponder, experience that. And I do think that there's something around being grounded first, and deeply being grounded in Earth and Earth's energy before experiencing or opening too much up there, because I think it can teeter the energy to be a little ungrounded and then getting lost in the information, which can feel a little more like pathological as well. And I see that a little bit more in this, where it's like the channeling or things isn't like almost like grounded enough when you go into that type of energy or reconnecting with beings from your origin. It can kind of almost tailspin you. So I also say to a lot of people is like, don't push it, like if you're wanting to know or where am I going, because it can tailspin also if you're not grounded. So everything does happen in that divine timing.
Yeah.
To unveil that information, where it can feel experiential, which our last podcast, we talked a lot about parallel timing and the experiences through our electrons and our cells. Everything has to be, doesn't have to, but it's best when it's also experienced deep in the cells rather than pushed. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So where are you from, Pam?
Where am I from?
Where's your origin?
I know that I've been in many places, but I'll say like origin is Arcturus.
Yeah.
Is Arcturus, and then I know that there is like I'm leaning into like a fraction. When you think about like what race we are as humans. Like, oh, I'm 10% this or 15. I don't know.
Yeah. What does my 23andMe tell me?
Yeah. So like, I feel like heavy on the Arcturian side.
Yeah.
A little lower percentage on the Syrian side. And then I've got some dragon. I won't say the word out loud because people might get a little. Is it Draconian?
Draconian. Yeah.
Yeah. People kind of get scared of that one. But.
Yep. But you would
But
you would
I'm
be
just like,
surprised
it's
how
just-
many have origins in the Draconian and reptilian.
Yeah, so a little reptilian, but don't be afraid. And Arcturian and Syrian. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be something too, is that it doesn't have to be just one origin. And perhaps in one lifetime or another, you might really focus on one of the origins. Like it's maybe you've come to Earth specifically to carry a message from that origin, even though your soul can house multiple frequencies of origin. There's a lot of wars that have happened, and there's a lot of transference, if you will, from planets to planets. I say what I tell clients a lot is that you may be, think of your life here. You may have been born somewhere, and perhaps you travel around, you place pockets of yourself in different places. Maybe you move, you work and study somewhere for 5 years, and then you move again. Like you gather parts of those places, or you place memories there. It's kind of no different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I've backpacked a lot of places.
Yeah.
Which is true to my human form also.
Yeah.
But those are probably my like race origins.
Yeah.
That's like in my hybrid DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
What about you, Mare? What's your percentages?
No idea.
What's your 23andMe?
What's your Starseed 23andMe? That would be like a really good branding thing.
It
Don't
would
you
be.
think?
Yeah,
Totally.
It would be.
Okay.
Would be fun. I think the first time I even thought about entertain the idea was just with D, so it's fairly recent.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I've
You're like,
haven't
fuck.
yeah, I had no attachment to learning and no desire. Like I feel very earth, right? I've always
Yeah.
felt very earth. I feel the stories and the in my bones, and have like a deep love affair with earth and the frequency that's here. And then it's been
You're the backpacker that never goes home.
that never goes home. Yeah.
The one that stays a nomad in Bali forever.
Yeah, totally. Just not Bali, please.
Okay, whatever. Wherever you
Somewhere
want.
less obvious.
Yeah.
Korea?
Well, not a great backpacking
Yeah.
country. No. Somewhere off grid because, people.
Yes.
You can find me with the animals.
She's on her own island.
Yeah.
No, that would probably be me.
There's hippos and
You're in Africa somewhere.
somewhere where there's lots of animals. But as I know, like as I'm just like delayering and opening my consciousness into the idea that I do feel like in many ways, and I have no like real reason for this other than a knowing, like the knowing that Pam was mentioning and the bones kind of thing, that like maybe some of my time and my lives here on Earth are coming to an end. It's also why I think partly why I hold the archetype of death here is never just, it's for all things, and including myself, allowing some of these stories to go and allowing some of these stories to start to switch. And so as I'm allowing that kind of like realization and contemplation to start to permeate through my body, I've been opening more into the stories and knowings that come from other places. And it's interesting to navigate because I was like, okay, I'm a conduit. Are some of these things that I know, are they just like information that's being fed to me, or is that like more parallel live type but galactic version? So I know this because I'm living it, or I've lived it. And the latter they both are true, but a lot, especially for my own personal healing that has nothing really to do with anything else, it has been very true that the second is true. So I think D, you were mentioning Andromedan for me is what D read as, so it feels true.
And
Without an attachment of knowing what that, I haven't looked a whole lot, to be honest.
Yeah, and Andromeda can be a confusing one because there's an Andromedan constellation that's in our Milky Way. There's also the Andromeda galaxy, which is a whole other galaxy, which is more of the feminine to our masculine of Milky Way. So for you, it when I reading somebody, I'm like, oh, it felt like miles away. Like, and so I know it sounds weird, but it's like, oh, are she closer or is she really far? It's like, oh, she's really far.
Oh, she's
And
really far. We traveled there together. That
yeah,
was a
most
journey.
Andromedan souls are always like, I've come from a really long distance. And I'm like, Andromeda. So that, yeah, like, but then there's so many other planets in this galaxy of Andromeda. And I wouldn't be surprised if you collectively play in the more of the animal kingdoms there, because they say to me that you're almost like a bit of a like a care specialist. That's how they show me in human, a care specialist for the animals, like almost as if somebody was like a zookeeper. And you don't necessarily, you're not keeping them entrapped there, but there's an overseeing of their care and needs that you do a lot of. And I don't necessarily see you in animal form there, but they say it's like you're able to communicate between the two of them very easily. So we would see animal communicators here on Earth. It'd be no different than up there. So there's a certain like frequency, obviously, that really works. And it's obviously going to be a lot of heart center, a lot of telepathy.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that a lot, even
Yeah.
just here on the human
You're
life.
the zookeeper
Yeah, and I have
of our
had
planet.
like if you asked about like what past lives have you been here, I was like, I've been a lake, I've been the ocean, I've been like a lot of different animals, like some dinosaurs. Those are always
Yeah,
some
tree.
fun lifetimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
some trees.
But then they just said to me, it's because you can, you know, and all of this exists off Earth too. We think we just get it here, but it exists off. And so they also say to me, it's like you go and you know what the coding is. So you touch it and it's like becomes like an instant imprint for you.
Yeah.
Like almost like a QR code. They show me it's like that for you with that element of the animals, but also maybe then what the animals live on.
Yeah. Yeah, the animals and also like plants. More so like trees and plants, rocks. That's why I say like my clairvoyance or my clairknowing started as like the earth is sentient to me, so I feel the stories, I feel the coding in the earth. Voice activation has come around like earth, and then that connecting through that, and even with animals now, they've been some of my biggest teachers all my whole life, but definitely in my like spiritual journey where they've been my biggest teachers. And I often, when I'm really in that like intense learning moment, and they're transferring wisdom to me or helping me, I feel where they came from. Like I feel their origin. And so I always visualize it as a different place off of Earth that they've agreed to come here. And so I communicate on that level, and that's where I find the most peace in my heart.
Which is why you're so comfortable here, because you have Earth has one of the most, they said, diversified playgrounds of like nature and animals compared to anywhere else. It's like they send them all here. So you can have access to all of the subcategories, if you will, all in one spot rather than having to go from planet to planet. You're like, oh, it's exhausting.
Right.
And so you're like, I can get it all in one spot, help them bridge here, communicate with them, you give them an imprint of where they've come from so they feel more comfortable here. So of course Earth is going to feel very homey, but it's all in one place. It's like a magical ground you didn't think you could access. So whereas some starseeds actually prefer the reverse, where they're like, I want to go home because that's where all of my family is and all of my soul
Knowing,
group.
yeah.
Well, if your soul group is spread out,
Right.
and you get to come somewhere where they're collectively all here, it's
Big
going
old
to
family
be.
reunion. Just a
No
big
wonder
old
you're like,
reunion.
Earth is good.
I don't want to leave.
I do love Earth, and I do love and I do experience that telepathy with animals.
Yeah.
But every time I work with people, not every time, but you have to be careful that you don't put your agenda onto the animals. You see that a lot, where they'll be like, "It's saying this," and it's like, not really. But
Yeah.
I do experience what animals are saying. I just have to be like careful. Because sometimes we think animal communication, we literally just project our agenda onto the animal.
So what I'm hearing too, Mara, is like, you know how with like a human to human, we're like helping them vibrate more comfortably in Earth because they're not of the Earth vibration, right? It's kind of like I say to clients, like, you come from a place that's triangles and you're trying to fit into circles. So how do we make that work? You're kind of doing that for the animals.
Do you want to hear something
Right?
super
So
funny too?
it's
as
not
we're talking?
so it's not necessarily about the like what they necessarily need, it's just making them comfortable.
Yeah, that's so funny. It's also true, like when I do an intuitive reading, I'll often, like I'm just laughing at myself right now to be like, I'm just Earth. Because if I were to ask to, like if I were to start an intuitive reading, a lot of times I take the soul up into, like it shows me a room or a chamber, and they have been all kinds of different ones, right? And often there's animals in them. Sometimes they're like pink fluffy clouds. Sometimes it's like elven. Sometimes we're in the jungle somewhere. Sometimes it's literally just like blue clouds. Sometimes it's a matrixy type box. And I'm like, okay, communicate with your people now.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can go to, like they're here to talk to you. And I'm just
Yeah.
like stand there and smoke a cigarette.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, like on the outside. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes the work
Just
gets
arranging the
done.
meeting.
Yeah, just arranging a meeting, and
Yeah.
it feels along those lines as well with that.
Yeah.
And usually I'm like, you can invite here, or they have like a frog-like head, or they have, you know, like animals show up a lot in the breathworks too, like different ones that I don't, you know, it's kind of cool.
Which is kind of cool. And it's also, we talked in the last episode, we talked about how we communicate through our different parallel versions of ourselves through our electrons. So it's like you're here and you're sending, and you're working with all the animals in one place, but you're sending all the information through your electron field back to Andromeda, to like all those planets. So they're getting all the information of all what you're studying here.
Yeah.
Like through the electron field.
So cool.
That's so cool.
And it's like not just the animals, but the water, the trees, the soil, all needs also its communication from its missing counterpieces that did get seeded here. So I look at it like you're kind of a gatekeeper for that.
Yeah.
All of that. So they also said to bring your awareness is like, I know you're here on Earth, but they say focus also on you might, but like the gatekeeping of, do you need something else that sent down?
Right.
I need, because they sent you down as like literally the keeper
Yeah.
of land or Gaia or the animals. So it's also this like piece of, do you need something? Or is there a herd coming? The herd of sheep? Where are they going? You know, you're watching and I know for people listening, this might sound odd, but you're watching the incoming
Yeah. No, that feels very
of completion. Yeah.
true. Feels very true, which is,
It's
yeah.
a cool gift.
Very
It's
cool.
it's a bit strange, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I like to spend a lot of time alone.
Yeah.
Because I'm never, and my joke is like, I'm never actually alone.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can be by myself, but I'm never actually alone.
Yeah, and they said to me, though, you need to have all this space available for the other whispers. It's
Yeah.
not actually people are the problem. It's more that you need the space to hear the incoming, what do I need, what's coming, the traffics.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not the human's fault, but your gifting, your purpose here is with the nature, with all of the all different types of animals, insects, even like all
Love
of it,
insects.
everything,
Love them.
everything. And so, how could you hold both? They said
Yeah.
we don't want you to get distracted.
I don't wanna
Meredith.
get
Don't
distracted.
be, and you haven't. You don't let yourself be distracted because you create a bit of a separate.
Yeah. It's
And that's
nice.
all it is.
Thanks, Dee.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
That's
awesome.
really beautiful.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel really great.
I
You
know.
feel really
So
seen.
isn't
I
that a
know.
nice connection then
Yeah.
to a purpose of here? And so,
And it ties into my dream. Remember in the last episode, I talked about creating dreams
Oh,
or
yeah,
building
yeah.
dreams. And most of my dreams have to do with agriculture. They have to do with creating spaces where we interact in nature and with food and with creatures other than humans. Like we're part of it. And like beautiful, incredible creatures that humans are, they're just one part of what is all here. And so to being able to like open and listen to those frequencies and these sentience of all of the other creatures here and the rocks and the trees and the oceans and all of these sort of things allows you to like start to I feel more that like oneness frequency that is here that we've kind of disconnected from a little bit.
they said you're here to make them feel welcome.
Just
So
a
if
big
you're
old
making
welcome.
them all feel welcome, you're introducing them to the humankind of like, make them feel welcome. You said, I see you looking at the humans and being like, make that lake feel welcome.
It's true.
Make that,
Aw,
make
that's
that
so sweet. It's
you
so
said
true
they,
up
and
there,
that
yeah.
herb,
Ask for
make
consent.
it feel,
Ask for
yeah,
consent.
and make them feel welcome. What do you just, did you ask if you could pick that flower?
It's true.
Right?
Yeah,
Make
you
them
should ask.
feel welcome is like
Don't
this
take,
piece.
ask.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
I
I
love
like
this.
that.
Thanks,
Kind of
yeah.
giving me some, shivers
Some
over here.
goosebumps, yeah.
What about you, Robin?
Yeah, what's your origin?
Well, from what I was getting, so me, it happened through a hypnotherapy session. I had basically an Akashic record and it was totally random. Like I didn't even know what it was, and so I was like when put into the like the trance state kind of thing, and then guided in the library of your soul book.
Yeah.
And basically I've seen so what I was seeing is like a big dark blue book with wings on it, and then from there I was starting to see at the moment. So the way it goes is that like she gets you through all sorts of things, and then at some point she asked, can you show Robin where he's coming from, because I was just in direct channel with my higher self. And then at that moment, like some kind of portal opens in the front of me, and I see this like tropical kind of look. It was not Earth, obviously. And then on one side, I was seeing like a little far away, kind of blurry, like a tall, blue, very slim like being. And it was saying that this was like how I was looking, and this is where I was from. And so at that moment, after that, it was the craziest 2 weeks of my life, because this session like just like wildly completely opened my crown, and then I didn't sleep and eat for 2 weeks. It was just like absolutely insane. And out from this I was getting like a lot of information, and like hearing thing and guided like understanding things with like birds and connection with birds throughout my life. And this is where I got also I learned about like Starseed and what it was, because that's what this session like I was getting, that I was not from here, and I was like, why? Like how I'm here. Yeah. And then where I really knew was actually a little bit after that, with a session with Meredith, which was probably in the maybe the wildest experience I've had in my life. In like the non-physical, but even like all blinded, where in this breathwork session, after I don't know, maybe like 20-30 minutes, like I literally popped in this place I was seeing opening through the hypnotherapy session, and I popped in there like at another place, and I literally saw like a lot of these blue beings like coming on me, and all of them like around me in circles, like put their hands on me. And then, well, I mean, I probably cried the entire session, but like at this moment I remember crying a lot. And it was like the first time I really felt like, holy shit, yeah, this is where I belong almost.
You had the experience.
Which always, it was insane. It was like extremely vivid. And then after that, like bunch of other things happened, seeing like all the things, because I'm like in connection, and I do automatic writing since my early 20s in connection with this kind of like guide or angel, and I saw him as well. And then I was like flying above a lake, and all of them, they were sending me some kind of energy, and it would be too long to, there's lots of wild things that happened in this session. But and then from there I started to research a little bit. I started to like understand a lot of things, and I started to feel more connected to this. And I mean, there's more things that goes into this, but it's kind of how it started. So I would say so that like I'm my soul would be like a blue avian soul. But then I went like far into in full circle into coming back to, regardless of all that, what matters is that I'm here and now, and even if I'm not from here, I'm here for a reason. Because it's so easy to get lost into identifying yourself too much into something, and lose sense of this reality we're in, and staying grounded, which was like extremely hard for me at the time. And like at some moment I was like completely disconnected from everything here. And so it's a big help for some things. But now today, like I'm really trying to jungle, and really trying to like how do you like integrate all that, but like be me, like the observer of all this little piece of me that forms like me right now today here, and not fall too much into one thing that would make me feel like I don't belong here, or I shouldn't engage in that kind of thing or that kind of thing, and just kind of like accept everything as a whole. And I am not like a blue avian or just this. I am also Robin here. I am like mostly Robin here, but this is like this part
The
of maybe
influence.
this thing
Yeah.
that is kind of like sending me and influencing me, and then all the things. I don't have any other. I've had a lot, like especially when I was younger, I've had a lot of like visions and recurring dreams of in another body or seeing like other lives on this planet. Because one of the thing I was getting is that I have done like a lot of humans' life, because this race are so apparently like far away from like this dimension, and like operate like very differently, that I've had to go through a lot of things to just acclimating to the human life. And that was something I was getting, and so I've been like seeing a lot of different lives, like mostly things very violent and like not really nice to see, especially when you're a kid. But yeah, so it kind of started like this. So I was gonna say, if you have a doubt, like do an Akashic record session with someone that's like specialized into this. But before this, just also know that, I mean, awakenings can be pretty brutal, and then you got to be ready for a lot of things around you that fall apart. But it's kind of part of the game. But yeah, this is how it.
Yeah, and the avians are an interesting dynamic. The birds, because there's there's avians, and then there's also the blue avians, which can be even more, as you might know, of like the elder energy, or the grandfather energy of the avian species, and they're not as new. But it's probably also that aspect where there isn't really like a set home either, so they kind of perch everywhere, and somewhat like dragon energy. There's a lot of where the avians or bird energy likes to come into to the rescue. So because they're kind of flying around, they're sort of observing and seeing where to swoop in, really, right? So there's also those elements. So traveling to different planets, you think, okay, I can get a respite, right? Like, I'll just take it easy. I've landed, I'm going to set up my nest. And then you're like, no, I see. Like, I was going to do a bird noise. I was like, no, Deanne, don't even go there. But then it's like sort of the calling is over there, right? So it's like, it's almost like you're constantly feeling like you got to act or pounce or observe, right? So it's hard to just kind of come out of that dynamic too. And so the influence can be great. And it can also be the influence of some of what you've experienced in that soul origin that comes in here, and you have to learn to kind of neutralize or balance that polarity for you here, which is part of the gift of the growth and the soul evolution of it all. But I love what you said too, where you're like, I have to also be Robin here. And I think that's what I was saying before is to be very grounded, or have some sense in that mental, emotional, spiritual mind to not leave here and look at it as escapism. Where it's easier to be up there because you did come to Earth for a reason. So what is the integration and the implementing of the influence? So that was like, I love that you kind of said that too. And I just looked at it as like, how many of us do want to just do that in escapism? I mean, we all do some forms of escape, but I think the Starseed stuff is no different. Like, I'm not wronged here. I've got my guides telling me to, come home, and I live up there. It's very easy. Anyways. Thanks for sharing.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it's like my origin kind of got confusing there for a bit too, because I kept seeing myself dive into water, obviously, and I'd pop up, and I, through that reader, I was told I was from Sirius B, which is a water planet. A lot of like aquatic beings and mermaids and all the things. And I was like, that makes sense. Of course, I've been seeing this and all of that. And yet I remember in a meditation, Well, I was hearing about Mintaka. Like I knew about Mintaka, but I was hearing about it. And I was kind of going there and they wanted to merge. I remember them saying we're supposed to merge. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I don't think I can have the ability to merge Sirius B with Mintaka. Like, I don't know. Mintaka's not even there anymore. I don't know. And then it was like this whole pause on, I don't know what Mintaka is, but like it's there. I don't know what it is, but I'm over here and I'm channeling here and this is my safety. And then it was when Meredith and I started working out. She's like, no, it's like, you don't do total Starseed work right now. She's like, it's Mintaka D. And I was like, and then my whole cells and everything went crazy. Right. And then, obviously from there, then there was all the memories. And so I think I found, so speaking of bumping or bouncing around to different origins, I probably as a soul was like, okay, we got kicked out of Mintaka. I believe I probably did spend a bit of time on Sirius B because was probably most like more of my home. So it's like there's elements of integrating some amount of Sirius B energy, but not like fully. You know what I mean? Like it's like I couldn't fully unwind there. And so it sort of makes sense of why I was there too, because I may have been there maybe as a in-between place because I didn't know where else to go. Right. And they were probably like, you can come here. You could squat. Like, okay. Yeah. But for you, I want you to talk about the form you go into. Like for me, like if I dive in, I become a really long amphibian type of mermaid. Like I'm not a glamorous looking mermaid by any means. Okay. Let's just like disclose. I don't have cute hair. It ain't long. I don't got like a glittery tail. Like my girls are going to be like so disappointed that mermaids don't actually look like that. But like I'm very like, but I'm really long. Almost like I kind of feel like an Ogopogo a bit, which I like love. If I always say like,
she's very
I'm
tall
looking at the
human body as
Okanagan
well.
Lake right now, everybody, and there's like all of the mythology of the Ogopogo sea monster. But I would live the happiest life if I got to meet Ogopogo. So let's conjure that shit up. Okay.
My mom said she has. She's been on global news.
She's been on global news for
for
the appearance
Ogopogo
of,
sighting.
like that would just make like I remember as a kid being like. Like I wanted the Ogopogo to come out and be like, hello. And I remember my mom said she sat, it's short
Hello,
story,
dear.
but kind of not. No, it's short. I'll keep it short. She sat beside somebody on a bus who, like Greyhound. So, I'm not sure what the characters on Greyhound, but she was on Greyhound. This was like when Greyhound was still legit. And this guy sat beside her and pretty much was saying how there's a dock he goes to all the time, Ogopogo, and conjures the Ogopogo. He's seen it like 30, 50 times. Because every time he goes there, it comes to him. So my mom was just telling me all this. I was like, did you get his name? Did you get his number? Like, do you know where the dock is? Like, I'm like, and driving between that Peachland and Summerland, I'm like,
He's
I'm
like,
that
I
person
need
looking
specifics.
for the Ogopogo.
That's awesome.
So I should just take my electrons and like now like time
Get
jump
Pam's
and just
mom.
go into get Pam's mom. Go to the end of your dock. And
He's here all the time.
I know. So what I say when people say, oh, well, how come some people say, I think he's just in different dimensional.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
So anyways, I want to know what you look like in your alien Starseed origin.
Yeah, all sorts of. It's really neat though because having those reading, and then the cellular response of like the yes, and there's other things too. But it was also like what also confirms it is like the memories. So it's not like, oh yeah, somebody told me on this thing, so now I am. It's also was confirmed by like my own channeling of it and my own like using that parallel life energy of the sharing of information through electrons that I consciously tap in and I tap into the consciousness there and I participate in that life, those lives. And so the ones that I've participated in, so I'll speak to the ones that I've participated in versus the ones that I don't know of yet. So in the dragon realm, this is really interesting because this is before I even knew about the Arcturian or anything. So the first thing I understood was the dragon, and I didn't even know that was a starseed. I didn't know about draconian or anything like that. I had no idea. I wasn't into dragons or anything. I was in a session with a friend who does this kind of work as well, and he's really connected to dragons. And he was like, well, there's a lot of dragons etherically in this room right now. And I was like, okay, interesting. And while he's saying this, I was like getting all the like the cellular vibration of like, why are they all here in the room for my session? And then there was just this energy of like this one dragon coming up really particularly and really like almost like just tenderly, like etherically, I could feel this dragon, like feminine energy kind of, prodding at my skin and almost kind of like a little puppy would, and kind of like pushing her nose into me and kind of saying hello and like almost like wake up to me, I'm here. And as soon as I met her, which is a parallel me, instantly I'm freaking bawling and bawling and bawling because I can still feel that emotion on this because it was a reunion of many lifetimes that had not been near this energy, this consciousness of myself. And so after that session, it was very much clear. We channeled into her name, and it's Ariel, right? So which actually means in Hebrew it means the lion, God's lion, or lion of God.
Oh, interesting.
And when I kind of attuned into like what does she look like, it's this massive dragon that is like iridescent white. Like she's pearlescent white dragon. And then I was like, I didn't recognize her as like a consciousness of myself. I was just like, oh, I've got like a dragon companion. I didn't recognize it as a starseed version of me. For a long time until one day it like kind of like dawned on me. We were driving up to Vedette Lake, just near Kamloops, which is deemed to be the center of the universe. And while we were driving up to all the vortexes, Ariel was flying behind me, behind our vehicle. And she just kind of said, I am you, you know. And I was like, what? And so sometimes when I merge consciousness with those electrons, either I'm kind of Pam flying on her back, or I'll fly as her, and kind of just really feel into the dragon body. And then one time, before I even knew the Arcturian Syrian stuff, even when I was just working with just the dragon, I was in a Savasana after a Kundalini class outside, and or nature. It was beautiful. And then all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, Ariel comes up and she collapsed 7 dimensions. So she kind of brought 7 dimensions in front of my mind's eye. She put them all in one kind of stacked energy, and then collapsed them. So I could zip. I mean, I went on her back as Pam, and we flew up through these portals into the 7th dimension, and we landed in a white, like a marbly temple with these like pillars and stuff, and kind of like it was almost like we were in the clouds. If I looked out the window, I could see like this really green, lush valley, and there was almost like a waiting room kind of a feel. And then this woman who was like really etheric and long blonde hair, but she was of the 7th dimensional realm, came up to me, and she put a bunch of gems in some of my chakras, and then set me back onto Earth. And then I was like, what was that? And then since I've realized that she is the humanoid version of Ariel, like 7th dimensional version. So she can be a humanoid version in 7th dimension. Yeah. She can be dragon form. Yeah. And so now I'll either be and merge into dragon or the human version, humanoid version. Yeah. in that dimension of the 7th. So if it's 7th dimension, that's how I feel. And so that's one. Yeah. And then it was really also interesting because I studied the Sophia code, dragon tribe. Yeah. And Sophia code dragon, Sophia's dragon is white pearlescent dragon. And so I've since attuned that Ariel is of that same familial line. So that's interesting. And then later on I got more tuned into Arcturian energy after the dragon energy. And then I spent a lot of time visiting Arcturus, and that is a blue body, not blue avian like Robin, but like a different type of, like almost like the blue avatars. And then I've spent quite a time there, just kind of walking through Arcturus and walking through the cities, and kind of almost like mission-y feeling. I always feel like I'm on a mission, and I'm kind of like doing some like mission work, and that's kind of more in the relation of the Galactic Wars. I'm kind of more warrior style, but also shamanic and all these different things, because those are leader.
Yeah, it's a lot of
and they're supposedly, as you say, like the galaxy's like top healers or something.
Yeah, they are. And when I'm reading for clients too, or as clients that want to know, or if I go into a spirit baby's origin, Arcturians sit quite, like I have like almost like a meter. And if people are listening, not watching, it's literally like if you look at like a half a circle, right? And like almost like a gas, like putting the gas on, and how high are you going, or your tank of gas. And so from like dense, and I look at it as vibrational from dense to extremely high or airy, if you will, and everything in between. And so every origin in there shows me their placement. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I typically tend to read, is because I can feel a vibration or sense it, and then it shows me on my gas tank. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Arcturians typically tend to be quite in the middle.
Right.
So extremely balancing.
Yeah,
too.
that makes
They're
sense. I'm a
really
Libra.
close to Andromeda in energetics as well,
Yeah.
but they're quite like right
Right
in that
there.
middle.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, you can have great and equal aspects, of masculine and feminine vibration.
So cool. So
Yeah.
cool. And so I've spent a lot of time there, and when I tune into my my kin in that area, it always feels like more style of like, I could feel my parents there. I could feel some friendships and a partner, that kind of stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've spent a little bit of time. There was one. Then after that was a meditation that got me into the Syrian body, and then I was underwater, and it was very different. It wasn't. It was very like blue collar kind of energy, like just a simple family life. You know, I wasn't doing anything crazy.
They're your work hard.
They're my yeah. Okay, so it was kind of like it was like I met a family there, and I was kind of just like spending family time, but it wasn't on this like dragon mission with Sophia's god dragons, and it's interesting.
They're kind of serious too. Like, I know it's serious, but they're actually like personality wise, like serious wise, kind of quieter, but really deep strength.
Yeah, and so I just spent a little bit of time just kind of visiting like the family there, and not really seeing friends, but kind of.
Did you say you're underwater?
I was underwater.
So you must have been in Sirius B then. Yeah.
And
maybe we crossed paths there.
Maybe we probably did. And it's interesting now. I even thinking about going back to Dragon and like Ariel being the Lion of God. It's like then Sophia is like what they would. It's been channeled as being like the feminine version of God, but it's like she's in the Sophia lines. Of course, she's a lion. She's already showing me by her name that she's in Sophia's lineage.
Yeah,
which is so wild. Anyways, but I haven't spent a ton of time in Sirius B. More just kind of like. I step into Sirius B when I want to get a really good dose of like blue collar wisdom. Yeah. Because I'm really kind of I'm very kind of white collary in Arcturus.
Yeah. So a little bit like it is more like top of the pyramid kind of thing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because it's been niggling in the back of my head the whole session, or our whole podcast, this whole episode, and even prior, but like there's a message sitting like right in the back of your neck, like in here, like there's something that's trying to push through, like you have a message to say on the podcast coming from your origins. I don't know if it's the Dragon one, Arcturus, Sirius, maybe it's a combination of all. Do you know what it is?
I don't yet. I can feel it too, and I can sense
it's like sitting right in the back, like, and I feel like somebody's trying to like push it through a little bit, like it's sitting kind of. Is it something to do with the 13th?
What I'm noticing when you say that, I'm noticing the Ariel, I'm noticing the Arcturian version, the Syrian version, they're all there.
Yeah.
The Arcturian version seems a little bit more forward. And it could be, but I honestly, and it might come out light language, because I don't know.
Do you feel comfortable doing light language?
Yes, but it's not here. It's not ready yet.
It's not ready yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe on a different one. Yeah.
Maybe.
Do you know are you picking up anything?
I'm just hearing like the value is you. This to do with value. The value is you.
Value's been a theme, hey, for a bit. The value is you. Okay, now it's going to come through. Okay. Oh gosh, this is one of those moments. Here we go. Atikita atata tikatika atika tikataka namanagana kusha. Oh, sama nagana gusha ragana gusha kushima hohoi. Ahohoya nakana kushikana kushikana manakana gonna la akishi ushua. Isha gonna man gonna ashi ahusha usha da ramana gonna shi hi. Oh kusha ashi shamina ash could go she she good did you see I yeah yeah she could put it Yeah. Phew. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That was the new sounds.
It's so great. I was observing like just where that traveled, because it started as a message in the back of like your neck. And as you were going through, I could really see it like start to go through your whole body and like push out. So as if you're gifting it then through your heart, a lot in your heart, and it just could spread.
Oh, interesting.
So it's probably also an integration of the worth part for her, and then also sharing that. I love it.
It was interesting because if I ever go into like vibration language, light language, I can typically get like a little bit of a, oh, that's the story, like what the story is in like English words. But this one was so interesting because it was coming from so many different dialects.
Maybe it's the combo of
Yeah,
all three.
Yeah, it was really like, okay, it was really combining all the voices. It was really cool.
And so
the fragments back together.
Yeah.
yeah. What everyone heard just now is what is called light language. So part of in someone observing their starseed origin or their connection of starseed within them, it can come out in sound and in language that isn't English. It isn't maybe any other language here on Earth, obviously. It's light language that is specific to your origin or how your body is actually translating the message through sound.
Because if we think about like sound as a vibration, it's such an, again, we were like, let's talk about Hather in the last episode, but it was like this throat activation where every syllable, every vibration we emit from our voice box and our larynx is so sacred. And there is so much to understand about the seed of sound. And so who knows what that is? It's just the seed of sound, you know?
Well, sound is like the original form of communication amongst all things, and especially like here on Earth, if you think about like, I'm sorry, I was going to Earth Center, but if you think about like going into like a forest or a quieter information, the frequencies and sound even of like a water dripping off of a leaf and landing on there, like the soil, has got communication in it. And so that birth of sound, that birth of frequency, that birth of that is like a very pure form of communication that often doesn't get bogged down with, we talked to one of our first episodes about egregores or matrices, and so we attach those to words and English words based upon our lived experience. And so sometimes we get to bypass those lived experiences when we're really trying to work through with something. And it gets into that purity of sound, and that's why sound frequency and sound healing can also be so powerful for people, is because it's a real primal part of who we are and how we communicate with all parts of self and the outside world.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's been a great podcast.
Yeah, great episode.
Any of you guys got anything else or no? Well, we're going to leave it with trust yourself.
Be yourself.
And love yourself. Thanks so much for listening.
Till next time.
Until next time.